Hey guys, welcome to Three Old Tech Dudes for this week. This week we're going to talk about, what are we going to talk about, guys?
Let's talk about the stuff that we got from the Hamfest and barn finds recently.
All right, barn finds are
awesome.
So the barn finds are really dirty barn finds.
Some of them can be a little cruddy.
They are.
I'm thinking it's going to give me a lot of things to do.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. There's some good stuff.
Yeah, so I should tell the story. Yeah, so like it's about 3 weeks ago now, but about 3 weeks ago, my uncle was cleaning out a barn. And it was just a barn of just junk. Honestly, he's like, I have some electronics. I don't know what to do with it. You just come over here, tell me if it just needs to be sent to recycling or trash or what. I go over there, and I was stunned by a couple of things I found. I'm like, where did you get
There
this?
was some cool stuff in there. Cool old stuff.
I'm thinking trash. Literally, like, okay, blenders, something like that. Right. No, he had computers.
That's great. Barn finds, but not Mustangs and Corvettes and Pontiacs.
Yeah.
Well, we do electronics, okay?
We do.
I would love to find a Mustang in a barn.
If I find one, we're doing a video on it.
That's great. It is old tech.
We'll figure out how to get that thing working. Now you laugh, but I have actually gotten a carbureted vehicle running before. But
sure,
that was a bit different from my lifestyle, but it was, it was reality. Mm-hmm. So we have barn finds, and we also have the stuff we got from the Columbus Hamfest, which was our last video. Assuming I put them up there the way they're supposed to be, but it should be though. So anyway, so the things I got 3 things from the Hamfest. Mm-hmm. I got a spool of wire, which I actually brought with me, but it's just wire to make antennas with. I got a radio that was the first model that I ever purchased for me. I had one, a friend of mine let me borrow, and then later just gave to me. But this was the first one I ever purchased. It was a 2-meter handheld HT, or handy talkie is what that means. But it's an Icom IC-2GAT, which is a neat one because it's up to 7 watts output, which is really neat. And I have some fun stories about that one. But unfortunately, my original one was stolen out of my truck. No, I want to say 1994. So it's been a long time. So I stumbled across one at the Columbus Hamfest for $8.
It's a good price. Even for one that's
I paid $200 for that originally.
Oh yeah.
$8. So I got this thing home, and we decided to
Is that just 2 meters?
Just 2 meters only. It's 2 FM. That's it.
$200 for 2 meters. Huh?
So you
didn't really want it back then.
Well, yeah,
That's how the radio was at the time.
Yeah, it was not cheap. But so I took the thing home and plugged it into an external power supply and hooked it to an antenna and then keyed it up, and it worked. There's nothing wrong with the radio. It functions fine. Yeah. So I needed to get a battery, which hilariously cost me $20.
And
and then
Nathan sent me a great picture of this thing on the bench of him using it, and I actually have the recorded audio from that transmission we ought to throw in here out here.
So I'll show you the picture. I'll put that up here of what this thing looked like.
KB9 GMU testing. Yeah, this is the IC-2GAT I picked up yesterday. It's fully functional. Oh, of course, it's an Icom. Yeah, I'll send you a picture of it here in a minute. It's kind of funny.
It's amazing it sounded like a $200 HT still. Very good sounding radio.
Let me go get the radio because I have it.
Man, look at that brick. That's gorgeous.
Man, that's something.
I mean, this is back in the days when you bought a radio and you could beat someone to death with this thing.
And win every time.
Yeah.
Why, I don't know, but why you would ever beat someone to death.
This was considered compact technology at the time, and it really is if you look at
that
it.
belt clip. I think like that's actual metal. Like, wow.
Yeah, it's you know. So these were designed to be dropped off a tower and still work.
Sure,
But it was the battery for this, which is half the radio.
Oh yeah.
You know, the funny thing is, if you look at some of the new radios, which mine's like sitting over there, but they are like dual band radios. They're smaller than this battery and all, and they last for like days. Yeah, so this is
Comparison
This
for
is
you.
the radio I bought, which is the Icom. That's the little Baofeng thing. And then you can kind of see that
Yeah,
there. I think you can get it from there too.
absolutely. Yeah.
We have a camera over here too. So
And this is the battery and everything on this one.
yeah, that's the battery and everything. So this is just the radio, the antenna, which you can see the size
Oh
of it.
yeah.
And then the battery pack, which is the size of the radio. But it works. Now, if it charged up for me, it should work. That's a questionable because I let it die accident. There it goes.
Oh yeah. Word up.
I think that's Welch. That's noise.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. KD9 GME testing. Yeah. And the neat thing is,
Birdie on the. It's picking up in here, I think.
yeah, it's just picking up some noise. So the funny thing is, if you look, the light's dead, but that's where it displays. So it's a thumb wheel display, but it's actually LED. You know.
Yeah, it's really common to how Icom was doing things at the time on
Yeah.
several handhelds.
Yeah, and like back in the day, they had thumb wheel, but it was literal like thumb wheel numbers.
As a matter of fact, many of the HTs from that era have the displays on the top instead of the front.
Yeah, and they're simple display. It was only telling you the frequency, told you
Yep.
nothing else. Well, a
Not much
couple
at
of
all.
like transmit maybe or something, but it wasn't. I don't think it did actually tell you that. It tells you like this one gives you if you're a tone or not, and it gives you the memory number and frequency. It's just it's real basic.
Sure.
So, but it worked pretty well. The only thing wrong with it is the light, the backlight's dead. But I mean, it was actually a light bulb, not LED.
Sure.
Light bulb back in those days. Why it wasn't like a red LED or an amber LED? Because they had those. I don't know why they just didn't use it, but green or something. But they didn't. It was nothing.
Wow.
So, but it's really simple. There's only two knobs in this thing. So you've got squelch and on with volume. But the neat thing is, like, you hear like today's radios, you turn them on and they have to boot up. This
Basically,
thing's like
yes.
on.
Yeah, just there.
Yeah, and it has you can put your headphone, extended thing into, and you've got, batteries, different batteries. This is the BP8. They made a BP10, a 12, and there was a joke. If I can find it, I'll put a picture of this. But there was a joke back in the day. These batteries don't have long life. Okay, especially back in the day. They were iCads, and a battery like that would get you about 2 hours. That was
Is that
it.
right? Yep.
Whereas the little dinky battery on this thing will go like all day.
I have a Yaesu FT65, which is a current generation dual band Yaesu HT, and the battery charge on it will last a week with every 30 minutes both directions you just going to work right now.
Yeah.
I was impressed. So I'll have to charge it once a week.
Yeah, and not in these days. No, you charge that thing, and you kept spare batteries with you.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I usually kept about 2 batteries with me at any one particular time for an event or something. But it was really funny. So they had a joke that was in QST, which is the amateur radio magazine, that had the all-day battery, and the guy who was holding the thing like this next to a counter, and the battery went all the way to the floor. It was like
A cart with little wheels on the bottom.
I mean, it was funny, but the sad thing was, you're like, yeah,
Makes
that's
sense,
not right.
yeah.
So, how much did a extra battery cost?
So back then or now?
Back then.
Oh, back then. I want to say back in like 92, 91 when I got the thing, I paid $200 for the radio and the battery. Of course, it came with it, and then I think I paid another $75 for another battery.
Sure. No, that's not
But
too surprising.
But at the time, all the Icom radios were using this battery, and so were the Radio Shack HTs a few years later. So these they made a lot of these things. You know, they're still making them. This battery here is actually new.
I'm surprised that they are. I mean, I've seen some third parties for other radios. But
Yeah, but because the Icoms use this, and so did the Radio Shack radios.
I thought it looked like the one off the
there.
HTX202 Radio Shack.
Yeah, and it may actually be more direct for it, but it works just fine with this too, because
Right.
it's the same technology. I'm pretty sure
laid out
Icom
the same.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Icom actually made it. But this has some neat things. So this thing puts out, what, 5 watts on a max or something
about
like
right,
that?
yeah.
This thing puts
what they
out,
say,
yeah, well, yeah. This thing will put out 7.
Wow. At the time, that's a lot even.
And the reason that's metal is the back of this is metal.
That's right,
is
gotta
that's where it dissipates the heat
And have a heat sink. Yep.
into your home.
Yep.
And it gets hot. So I think I told you guys about the band opening story one time where I was sitting in my apartment. It used this HT.
Yeah. That's great.
Sitting
how far
there
did you
with,
talk on it at the time? Do you remember
I
how far
talked, it was a stupid distance. I was on, in 92, there was or very beginning of 92 it was, or no, it was very end of 91. There was a major storm that came through, and it was stretched all the way from like San Antonio or below San Antonio, Texas, all the way up through into Canada. And I had keyed up, I was going to key up the Anderson repeater, which is on the same frequency as our local repeater here. And when I keyed it up and unkeyed it, you know, I called a friend of mine, and I think maybe somewhere between 7 and 10 courtesy tones went off.
Oh, that's spectacular.
And I was like, oh, I think we're having a band opening, because
bit.
that's a lot. Usually you hear 1,
Yeah.
maybe. That was insane off of a rubber duck. This is a rubber duck antenna. Like the antenna was this, it was only this big. In fact, I think this might have been the original one I used with it, but back in the day, I did actually have the antenna, because they sold it on my
good.
truck and it was hooked to an external
Let's go. You
antenna.
still have the antenna. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Piece of it lives on.
yeah,
Yes.
exactly. So I decided to go to the simplex, or you might think of it more like if you have a pair of walkie-talkies, just one to another. There's no repeater in line, nothing like that. So I went over to the national simplex calling frequency, 146.52 megahertz in the United States and Canada. I think Mexico too, honestly. I think it's really common for
regional.
most places, regional or anyway. So I went over there and called CQ, which, if you remember, is a really common thing back, especially if you're like a Titanic historian. You know, CQD was the CQ distress. Well, calling CQ is just, are you out there? I am, whatnot.
Seeking you.
Yeah, so, yeah, exactly. So I unkeyed, and a guy came back to me and asked, he's like, yeah, you're sounding awesome, man. Where are you at? I've just been really listening for a little bit, and I usually listen on simplex. He's like, I'm like, well, I'm up here in Indianapolis, north side of Indianapolis. And the guy said, oh, really?
Wow.
He's like, I'm like, yeah, I'm north side of Indianapolis, up by St. Vincent Hospitals, where I lived at the time, on the ground floor,
Wow.
in the apartment with the HT in my hand, like this. The guy was driving on the outer beltway around San Antonio, Texas.
That's
or the inner, I think it was the inner beltway, actually.
That's
but
so
it was
cool.
San
Wow.
Antonio, Texas. We got talking for about 5 minutes about just how funny that really was, because that's an insane distance on simplex on 7 watts. So I had told him, I said, well, it's getting kind of hot. Let me kick down to 1 and see if you can still hear me. I kicked down to 1. He said it dropped 1 S unit. So the needle went from like full scale to went, and he's like, I can't hear any difference. There's a slight amount of signal difference. That's it.
That's an effect
crazy.
called tropospheric ducting.
Oh, yeah.
So, like you said, a large storm was going through, so you end
And
up with what's called a temperature inversion. The air and moisture above the storm is warmer than the ground, the below, and it will bend the signals through the atmosphere, whereas they will actually escape into space off of a radio like this. Yeah, all the way into space. So,
Oh, yeah. And it acts just like the ductwork in your house. It literally just goes right through.
basically, the signal went all the way to Texas.
Oh, yeah. And as we were talking, a guy broke into conversation, and he said he was taking his wife to dinner. Was just kind of curious where we were at, because we were coming in really, really strong. Both of us. We're spread all the way across the country. He was in Canada.
That's spectacular. That's so cool.
Wow.
That was the neatest one I'd ever experienced. That was just like, I'm like, that's cool.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow. I just thought
No big tower, super.
No.
I mean, no more than a handheld radio. And
handheld radio and a dinky line antenna.
So how
And
long
it-
did that last?
Like hours.
Oh, that's
Wow.
great. Yeah, every once in a while you have one that's open a long time.
And I had never experienced anything like that, like, you know, with that kind of distance. I mean, I've had openings that were kind of like, you know, went like a good distance, but never like literally over 1,000 miles on a 1 watt transmitter
Yeah, that's something.
on a dinky antenna. I mean, it just, you know, it's odd, but it does happen, but it is kind of rare. But that was my favorite story with one of these radios, other than the fact that you couldn't hurt these things.
That's a great radio too.
I mean, you know,
Glad to have one back.
So, and the audio on this, because it uses such a big speaker, the sound quality on this thing is actually amazingly good, especially compared to like
Even the microphone quality on it, I don't know why it's just well designed.
Yeah, they use it's a better mic, and they use a just a large. It's kind of like comparing like a cheap synthesizer to a nice synthesizer.
Yes.
You know.
There we go. Hey everyone, just letting you know that this video is running a bit on the long side, so I decided to split it up into a few more. So this was part 1, and that's it there. It's being edited down now, so I'm going to go ahead and put this as an outro. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Make sure that you watch the next video coming up. It should be out hopefully next week. And I will talk to you all later. Have a great one. Bye.